What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Now, today, we're going to be going over the entire off-season blueprint that you should follow if you want to throw harder. Now, I'm giving away all the sauce today, okay? I'm putting it all on the line because I want you guys to throw harder. I want you guys to make progress faster than I was able to make progress when I was in high school. So you're getting all the sauce today. But I will preface by saying this. This video is going to be about 20 minutes long, and if you don't care enough about throwing hard to give me your attention for 20 minutes, then just click away from this video now. But if you actually care about your career, you want to throw harder, and you're sick of staying stuck in your current velocity range, then stick with me for the next 20 minutes. This video will change everything. Okay, so something that a lot of guys have trouble with is transitioning from fall ball into their off season. They're like, well, should I take time off? How much time should I take off? I'm going to answer all of those questions for you. Okay, so if you play fall ball, that season's going to end around late October, early November for most guys, right? Some guys might go a little longer, but the next phase after fall ball for most guys is to shut completely down. And this shutdown might look different for everybody. Some guys take a month off, some guys take 2 months off, some guys take 3 months off of throwing, right? And to be completely honest with you, there's no real reason to take that much time off from throwing, okay? So typically, what you want to do is you want to take a 2-week deload period after fall ball. Okay, and if you don't know what a deload period is, it's basically this. You are going to do no throwing, you're going to shut down, and in the weight room, you can still go, but you're going to be cutting your sets in half, and you're going to be doing a lot less weight. So maybe cutting your weight by half as well. And the reason we want to do this and not just completely shut down and take off completely is because we want to keep the body moving, okay? A lot of the gains you make throwing wise and lifting wise are use it or lose it. So if you just take 2 weeks, a month off from either throwing or the gym in total, you're going to lose a little bit of strength. You're going to lose a little bit of gains that you've made. So we want to make sure those gains stay intact. Taking a 2-week deload is a great way to do it. Now, after that 2-week deload is done, you're going to move into your off-season training, okay? So I will get into the specifics of all of that, I promise you. I just want to reiterate how important this time period is so you don't mess it up. Okay, so now that we have a timeline established of when we're actually going to begin our off-season training after that deload period, we're going to go over the goals of what each month should look like during your off-season training. Now, I broke this up into 4 months because typically the off-season for most guys is going to be 4 months, right? Depends on where you live. If you're in Florida, you might start playing games in February. I'm from New Jersey. We start playing games around early March. So as a general rule of thumb, the offseason is going to be about 4 months. So months 1 and 2 are going to be about building your strength base, okay? So obviously in each offseason, we want to make progress, okay? And in the weight room, that's no different. So building that strength base, compound lifts, I'm going to get into the specifics of what those look like, but just going over goals, we want to build that strength base. We want to gain or lose weight, right? Because a lot of you guys watching this are probably really undersized. Maybe you're a little bit on the leaner side and you want to gain weight. Months 1 and 2 are going to be when we really, really hit that bulk hard. Or if you're a guy who's a little bit more heavier set, this is when we're going to start cutting back the calories a little bit and trying to slim off or, burn off some weight. And that's completely fine too. It depends on who you are. It depends what your goals are. Okay. And we're going to build a base of throwing capacity. Now, what does this mean? Basically, we want to get our arm ramped up properly for high intensity throwing. Now, months 1 and 2 of the offseason typically aren't going to include a ton of high intensity throwing yet. That's going to be more for months 3 and 4, but we want to start to ramp up properly to build that throwing base. So that's months 1 and 2. Months 3 and 4, I have strength speed written down because we're still going to focus on strength. We're still going to try to get stronger. But now, since we're getting closer to the season, We want to start to train those quick twitch fibers. We want to get our strength dialed in on the strength speed continuum so we can actually start to train those fast twitch muscles and move faster on the mound if that is your goal. We want to continue the bulk and cut. The calories might be backed down a little bit in months 1 and 2 if we're bulking, or if we're cutting on the opposite end of the spectrum, we might want to decrease that deficit just a little bit since we're getting ready for the season and we don't want to be starving ourselves essentially. We want to ramp up throwing. So I talked about in months 1 and 2, that's not going to be, huge on the high intensity throwing. Months 3 and 4 are going to be when we really start to ramp it up, like getting those pull downs in, those high intensity bullpens, having 2 high intensity throwing sessions per week. This is when we're going to really start to do it because we're getting closer to the season. We want our arm to be as close to mid-season form by opening day as possible, okay? And if you follow this schedule that I'm about to lay out for you, then that will happen, okay? And then introduce competition. So what this means essentially is once we get kind of to the tail end of month 4, right on the brink of opening day, that's when we want to start facing hitters. That's when we want to have guys tracking our bullpens. We want to get used to having a hitter on the box because we haven't done it for 4 months since fall ball. Or if you didn't play fall ball, then haven't done it since the summer, okay? Because there's a huge difference between throwing bullpens and throwing bullpens with a guy in the box, right? And facing hitters. A lot of guys are really, really good. They look like Cy Young when there's no hitter in there, but the moment a hitter steps in, they become timid, okay? So we want to avoid that at all costs. We want to get used to having competition, hitter in the box. So the tail end of month 4, that's when we want to start to do it. Okay, so let's talk about throwing a little bit in months 1 and 2. Now, as we stated before, months 1 and 2 are going to be about building that baseline of throwing, okay? So this schedule that I have laid out is going to help you do that, okay? So Monday, Wednesday, Friday are going to be our throwing days, okay? At least for the most part. Now, as you get deeper into months 1 and months 2, you can start to add 4 or 5 days, but just starting out, we want to keep it to 3 days a week. So Monday, 60-foot athletic catch with 1 drill, okay? I'm not going to tell you which drill to do. And the reason I'm not going to tell you is because I have no idea what your mechanics look like. So the drills that you need to work on are different from the drills that maybe your teammate or your throwing partner needs to work on. So figuring out that mechanical inefficiency that you need to work on in the off season, whatever that may be, right? Like if your arm is low at foot strike, you have a low elbow, maybe you need to work a bunch of abbreviated drills to help cure that. So that's the drill that you would add on Monday. And I say drill because I am not a fan of stacking multiple drills on the same day. Now, sometimes it can be okay, but for the most part, that just causes tension, that causes tightness, that causes you to lose your natural athleticism, which brings me to my next point, athletic catch. You'll notice that on Monday and Wednesday, I have athletic catch written down, and you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell is athletic catch? Basically, it's moving around like an infielder and an outfielder. It's not just throwing like a pitcher all the time. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to unlock your natural throwing patterns. Now, everybody moves different. Everybody has a different anatomical structure. So when you introduce things like athletic catch, you can start to unlock those natural movement patterns that your body wants you to stay in. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't change anything about your mechanics because you probably need to some degree. But for the most part, adding athletic catch into your routine is going to help you unlock those natural throwing patterns and let you see what your body wants to do. There's a really big misconception around pitching development that you need to completely rebuild yourself, and that is just not the case. You need to unlock yourself. When you were 10 years old throwing a baseball for the first time, or however old you were, you didn't think about all these different mechanical cues, right? You just picked up the ball and threw it. And everybody's throwing motion is kind of like a snowflake in the sense of they're all different. No 2 pitchers on the planet throw the exact same. Yeah, some guys might look similar. Some guys might be comparable to other guys in the way that they move, but nobody inherently throws exactly the same. So that is why athletic catch is so important. Now, moving on to Friday, your long toss day. Obviously, this number, 120 feet, is going to start to increase over time as you get deeper into months one and months two. You might be a guy who can long toss the absolute shit out of it, and this might increase to 300 feet. But for the first 2 weeks, we want to stay within these parameters, right? Because we're just starting to build that arm strength up. So going to 120 on Friday, that's just going to be your let it eat day. Okay, and when you're long tossing, you can use just normal step behind or crow hop footwork. No drills on this day, no athletic catch. This is just going to be getting our arm stretched out. Okay, so getting a lot of air underneath the baseball is going to be really important too when we long toss. I see a lot of guys back it up to 120 feet and they're just ripping it on a line. And this can be good in some cases, like when you're going in from long toss, but when you're working out, you want to keep those throws as high as possible so you can stretch your arm out. So, Saturday, that's going to be an optional day for you. And if you want to throw on Saturday, if you feel really good, you want to throw that fourth day, then just repeat Monday's throwing. Okay? So 60-foot athletic catch, like I said, these distances are going to increase as the off season gets deeper and deeper and your arm builds up more capacity, but Saturday is going to be that optional throwing day for you. Okay, now we're going to get into the lifting side of things. So you'll notice I have a similar structure built out to your throwing. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're going to be lifting ideally 3 days a week. And to some of you, that might be a shock because you might currently believe that you need to lift 5 or 6 days a week to make real progress. And maybe that's true if you're Chris Bumstead or you want to step on stage and flex and look good for a camera. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but as a baseball player and more specifically as a pitcher trying to gain velocity, 3 days a week is really all you need. And I'm going to explain why. It's because you want to get the absolute most out of these sessions, okay? You want to be lifting heavy. You want to be doing compound movements and getting stronger from week to week. And if you're lifting with enough intensity, if you're lifting the right way, it's going to put a lot of stress on your body. And stress plus rest equals growth, okay? So having stressors applied to our body Monday, Tuesday, and Friday on the lifting side of things is going to be plenty of stimulus for you to make serious muscle growth, okay? So what that split actually can look like is Monday can be an upper body day, Tuesday a lower body day, Friday a full body day. The other days of the week are going to be completely off from lifting. We're going to get to speed and conditioning next, but in regards to lifting, 3 days a week. Now, you can play around with these days based on your schedule, obviously. I don't know whoever's watching this what your schedule looks like. There's a million different things you have going on, right? School, maybe you play other sports, maybe you're in the debate club. I don't know. But in general, you want to be lifting heavy 3 days a week in these first 2 months. And what these lifts actually should look like, mostly focused on the compounds. So Monday for upper body day, having a pressing movement like a bench, a dumbbell bench, barbell bench as your primary movement is going to be super important, right? But not only that, but a compound pulling movement like a weighted chin up, a barbell row can be good, stuff like that, just to make sure you're actually getting the right muscle stronger. And mixed in with those lifts can be accessories. And the way that I like to program accessories for my guys is stuff like arm care, okay? Arm care is super important, and adding that into your lift is a really good way of measuring how you're actually making progress with your arm health, right? So if you have a dumbbell external rotation as an accessory lift, well, maybe you can only do 3.5 pounds to start off, and you have a weak rotator cuff or weak rotator cuffs, and the next week you go 5 pounds, and then by the end of the off season you go up to 10 pounds. Well, not only did you get stronger, but you actually measurably increased your arm health because your rotator cuffs are stronger. And that's a good thing because if you have stronger rotator cuffs, you're going to stay healthy for longer, okay? So same thing with lower body. You want to have a compound movement as the primary base of that lift. So I really like to program the reverse lunge for guys, specifically a barbell reverse lunge, because it's a hyper specific baseball movement where you're getting stronger on a single leg, right? You're going to be in the striding position when you come down the mound, so it only makes sense to get strong in that position. And a lot of guys really like to load up the back squat and get super heavy with those. And sure, if it works for you, then continue doing it. But in my personal opinion, I think the risk far outweighs the reward because a lot of guys do them wrong. But hey, if you do them right and you throw hard already, great, keep doing them. But a better alternative would be the front squat or the barbell box squat. And the reason being, at least for the front squat, is because it's an anterior loaded movement. So the bar is on the front of your body. It works core a little bit more. It actually helps you get a better range of motion than the back squat. And especially if you raise your heels off the ground when you're doing a front squat, those are absolute money. And the box squat is good too because it forces you to come to a stop and then you explode up. So box squats are really good. And same with the accessories. You could do a banded hip internal rotation, banded hip external rotation, something to just keep your joints healthy. I'm not saying all of your lifts besides the compound need to be like accessory movements, but they're good to add in just to keep that level of health intact. Now, when it comes to full body, in general, what you want to have is a compound lower movement and a compound upper movement. So, what I program for a lot of my guys, the trap bar deadlift as the compound lower, and then either a dumbbell bench or a single arm dumbbell bench as the compound upper, and then I'll fill in the accessories as I see fit depending on the guy. So that's a general framework of the lifting structure to follow for months 1 and months 2. Let's go to speed and conditioning. Okay, so speed and conditioning, here's what we got. I left the lifts up there so you can kind of see how this schedule fully plays out. So Wednesday, you should do a med ball day. Thursday, you should do a sprint day. Again, you can move these days around based on your schedule, but in a perfect world, this is what it would look like. And the reason that we only have 2 of these days programmed in goes back to what I talked about before, right? Less is more. So you might have the current belief that you need to sprint every day or you need to be doing med balls every single day, and that's just simply not true for 2 reasons. 1, because it's too much for your nervous system to handle, and 2, it's not sustainable. Because if you're doing all of these things every single day, like lifting, throwing, sprinting, med balls, that's not sustainable because you're going to get burnt out and you're going to start to hate the work and you're going to dread it, okay? So this schedule not only works from a recovery standpoint, but it works from a motivation standpoint, okay? It causes you to put way more into those sessions, especially if it's the only thing that you have for the day. So Wednesday, med balls. Why are we doing med balls in the first place? Because it's the best possible thing for you to do to train rotational power besides throwing a baseball, okay? So doing things like shot put throws, rotational med ball scoop tosses, which a lot of you have probably done before, building out a program and a full med ball routine to do on Wednesday is going to be really, really monumental in your velocity gains because you're not only going to start to be able to rotate faster, but you're going to start to understand how the lower half is supposed to move in the throw. Because when you do a med ball drill, it usually forces you into better positions with your lower half. So that's going to be Wednesday. Thursday, your sprint day. Now, this is going to depend entirely where your fitness levels are currently, but if you're relatively in shape, then you can do about 10 to 15 sprints on this day. And the variation can change, right? Like you can do straight up sprints at 20 to 50 yards. That's completely fine. Or you can mix it up and do sprints like the push-up start, half kneeling start, a jump back sprint, anything like that really. Just to get your body used to exploding in a short window of time, just like you're going to be doing on the mound. And what I mean exactly by that statement is when you're pitching, it's a short, quick burst of energy on the mound. We want our training to reflect that, especially when we do sprint work, okay? So that's speed and conditioning. Okay, so mobility, let's talk about it. you're going to notice I have, okay, mobility. Let's talk about this. So, mobility is one of those things you can do pretty much every day. And the actual mobility exercises that you do are going to be completely dependent on what you need to work on. As a general rule of thumb, pitchers want to have mobile hips, mobile shoulders, okay? So, whichever exercises that you see fit to do, you can add those into your routine. But in terms of when to actually do those things, that's what we're going to talk about. So, Monday, you can do your mobility pre-throw as a part of your warm-up. Tuesday, pre-lift as a part of your warm-up. Wednesday, same thing as Monday, pre-throw. Thursday, pre-sprint before you actually go through your sprint work. Friday, right before you throw as part of your warm-up. Saturday, you could do it on its own. Sunday, you can do it on its own. So mobility is really one of those things that you can't overdo, right? So you can kind of play around with it however you see fit. But this is a general framework and schedule to follow so you can consistently make those gains and actually fit it into your training. Okay. Mobility doesn't have to be this gigantic event in your life where you need to drop everything and do all of this stuff at once, right? Yes, I'm saying it's important, but you can add it into your warm up on most days, and that's plenty enough to get you more mobile, especially if you follow this schedule consistently. I mean, if you follow this consistently over the entire off season, you're going to step on the mound and be a completely different pitcher by the time opening day rolls around. So, going back to what I first said, the exercises that you do are going to be completely dependent on you, okay? So, if you're a guy where maybe your right side shoulder mobility is a lot worse than your left side, then let's spend more time working on that right side shoulder mobility. Or the opposite, if your left side sucks, and same thing with your knees, your hips, your ankles, whatever it may be, you usually have a general idea of what you need to work on. Like whatever areas that you feel that are normally tight, say either when you're throwing or lifting, those are probably the best areas to focus on when you actually do your mobility. That's going to cover months 1 and 2. Let's start to cover months 3 and 4. Okay, so months 3 and 4 is where the throwing is going to get really, really fun. And the reason for that is because we have 2 high-intensity throwing days. This is going to be when you let it rip, okay? So, going through the schedule, Monday is going to be a long toss day plus 100% pull downs, okay? So, you'll go through your warm-up, you'll go through your mobility that you need to do, and then you'll work into a long toss. And like we talked about before, step behind footwork, throw it high on the way out. And once you get your max distance, say 300 feet for that day, do about 5 throws at that distance and then start to work your way in. And when you're working your way in, you're going to do about 3 to 4 pull downs, not yet at 100%. Okay. That's going to be for later. Okay. So once you're in, once you're done your long toss, pull downs are going to be a separate throwing session. So what I mean by that is you get done your long toss, you're in, glove tap your partner, whatever, then you go into pull downs, okay? So have your partner hold a radar gun, pocket radar, whatever you have behind a net or behind you, doesn't really matter, and you're going to run up and you're going to throw about 5 to 7 pull downs as hard as you possibly can. And what you want to do is you want to record all of those velocities. The reason you want to do this is because you want to see the progress over time, right? If you start out averaging 88 the first week and then you're averaging 93 by week 8, then you made some progress, right? But we can't know that unless we're actually tracking our velocities. So that's going to be Monday. Tuesday is going to be a no throw day since you did your high intensity day Monday, and you're probably going to be a little bit sore or gassed. So Tuesday, take off, no throw. Wednesday, this is going to be a moderate intensity day, so building us back up for our next high intensity throwing session. So Wednesday could be 120-foot athletic catch, any drills that you need to do. This is a good time to do it. And then you can throw 10 to 15 pitch flat ground if you want. You don't have to, but what I find is a lot of my guys like to throw flat grounds to keep their pitch shapes intact, start to work on new stuff. So flat ground can be super beneficial to add in on that Wednesday. Thursday is going to be a lower intensity day. It's going to be 60 to 90 foot athletic catch. Once you work back into 60 feet after doing athletic catch, you can throw your pitches again. your changeups, curveball, slider, whatever, just to keep those pitch shapes intact. And then that's going to be a low intensity day, so we can do Friday high intent. So Friday is going to be more of a long toss day. We're going to get out to our max distance again, 3 to 5 pull downs on the way in, and then we're going to throw our velo pen. So 100% bullpen, 10 to 15 pitches, we're just letting it rip. And then same as Monday, we want to actually record our velocities with this bullpen. So similar to before, if we average 84 in our pens and then the last week we averaged 88, obviously we made progress, but there's no way to know unless you track. If you take one thing away from this video, it would be to track your progress, whether that's your calories, whether that's your weights in the gym, whether that's your velocity. Make sure you're tracking all of it so you can see how you're improving over time, okay? But after our high intensity bullpen Friday, Saturday, optional 60-foot athletic catch if your arm feels fine, if you're not that gassed. Saturday is a good day to kind of just feel things out, get some blood flow to the arm, and move around, okay? But Sunday is going to be a complete off day. Now, I want to say one more thing about this. This Friday bullpen, once you get to the tail end of month 4, that's going to turn into your live BP sessions. That's going to turn into your inner squads. That's going to turn into your bullpens with stand-in hitters, okay? So it's going to go from bullpens where we just let it eat to a little bit more of a controlled setting where you actually have guys standing in the box, so you can make that jump from let it eat mode and bridge that with let it eat with a hitter in the box mode. So again, take this routine, use it as you see fit, use it according to what you have available time-wise, okay? Now we're going to go on to lifting. Okay, now we're going to talk about months 3 and 4 lifting. So you'll notice that the schedule is pretty much the same as your month 1 and 2. And the reason being is because we want to stay making progress, right? We want to keep allowing for recovery, especially now because you're getting closer to the season. We want to make sure we're giving our body enough time to recover. But the difference is going to be in the way we actually lift, okay? So, for example, on this full body day, earlier in the video, I referenced the strength speed continuum, okay? So now we're going to be training on that continuum. So if I have a trap bar deadlift on Friday, TB dead, and say I work up to a heavy set of 5 reps at 400 pounds. I hope you guys can see that. Okay, I work up to that heavy set of 5 reps, then I'm going to do speed sets at a lighter weight. So say I do 3 reps at 200 pounds, okay? When I do those 3 reps, it's going to be as fast as we possibly can, okay? Because we want to start to train those fast twitch muscles because we're getting closer to the season, right? Month 4, we're a month out from playing games. We want our bodies to start to really, really move fast, okay? So hope that makes sense to you guys. So once you actually start to get a sense of how you should be training in months 3 and 4 on that strength speed continuum, then you're going to see it show up in your velocity. When you train your body in a way that reflects what you're going to be doing on the field, you can see progress pretty quick, okay? So training this way in the gym, it's going to start to show up in your velocity numbers, which is why I alluded to earlier why it is so important to track your velocity, right? Because if you go through all of this and you go through all of this, then the numbers on the radar gun are going to start to show that, but you have no way of knowing if you don't actually track, okay? So that's lifting. Let's move on to mobility. Okay, so you'll notice that the mobility structure in months 3 and 4 is very similar to months 1 and 2, okay? And that's by design. We want to keep making progress on the areas that we need to, okay? The only real difference is we're adding in mobility pre-throw on the days that we added throwing to. Like, for example, Thursday, we weren't really doing much throwing in months 1 and months 2. So months 3 and 4, when we do add that Thursday throwing day in, we want to do mobility pre-throw. And the reason we always want to do mobility pre-throw if we are throwing that day is because, think about it, where do you want those mobility gains to show up? In your delivery. And where are we practicing our delivery? When we throw. Okay, so we want that to be as linked close together as we possibly can. So adding in your mobility pre-throw is going to be super beneficial. Now, Saturday, when you have an optional throwing day, you can either do it pre-throw if you do decide to throw, or you can do it on your own as its own session if you're not throwing. Completely up to you and how your arm feels, okay? Now, all of the things that I just talked about in this video are super important, and if you copy and paste that schedule into your life, you will throw harder. But one thing you might run into is not knowing the exact drills, the exact mobility routines, and the exact lifts that you need in particular. And if you want full one-on-one guidance and a complete custom program, then book a call with me down below. We'll talk about your current situation, where you want to get to, and how I can help. Just like I've done for Kyle, who gained 6 miles per hour in under 3 months of working with me, or Sebastian, who gained 3 miles per hour in 3 months and got invited to play for Team USA over the summer. So once again, book a call with me down below. I'll help you out. I'll build you out a custom program for you to start throwing harder. But thank you for tuning into the video. I will see you guys on the next one.